My name is Sean. This is We Are Investing, a channel that's dedicated in investing and personal finance. Today, we are going to be talking about the RSI, the Relative Strength Index. It's a tool that traders can use to help make them more money. Whether you are a short-term trader, a swing trader, or a long-term investor, the RSI can help you identify key points of entry. Whether you're going long or you are bearish on a trade, the RSI can be used to help get you into high quality trades. And that's what we're all about on this channel. And if you're all about making money in the stock market via investing or trading, then this is the channel for you. And definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell, and smashing that like button. This video will be broken into topics, chapters, which will be in the timeline down below, so feel free to skip around if you want to. Now, step number one is, what is the RSI? What is the calculation, the formula behind this oscillator? Well, the RSI is used to gauge momentum. Is momentum strong or weak for a particular stock? Is it trending upwards or downwards? That's what the RSI is going to help you determine. There are two main factors with the RSI. The time frame that you're looking at the chart and the setting of your RSI. The RSI is called the Relative Strength Index because it is relative on what chart you're looking at. If you're looking at the daily chart and then you look at the hourly chart, the RSI is going to change because the chart that you're looking at impacts the calculation. So when looking at the RSI, I typically look at it on the daily chart. The further out, if you look at daily or weekly RSI, the stronger that number is going to be. If you're looking at the 1 minute chart, well, your RSI might indicate that it's extremely overbought, but if you back out to the daily chart, you will see that there is still room to the upside. So in my personal opinion, if you look at the RSI on the daily or the weekly, you're better off. The next variable in here, the next factor to consider, is the setting of the RSI. The default setting is 14. What this means is that in the calculation or the formula for the RSI is taking the last 14 candles. So if you're looking at the daily chart, it's going to take the last 14 days. If you're looking at the weekly chart, it's going to take the last 14 weeks. And if you're looking at the 5-minute chart, well, it's going to take the last 14 candles. Each candle is 5 minutes. You do the math. Now, 14 is the default setting. It is what I like to use. Whenever I use indicators or studies, I like to use what most people use because the stock market is a market. It's a market of buyers and sellers. And when you are trading, you want other traders to see what you're seeing. If everyone sees that a stock is overbought, then those that are long in it, the traders that are long the stock, are going to start to fade their position. Those that are looking to get into a trade, well, they're going to enter into a bearish trade. If everybody sees this, then you're going to start seeing that price action. And that's when studies, indicators become powerful because traders can see clearly that a stock is overbought or oversold. The default setting is 14 days, but some traders will change this to 10 days, and you're free to change the setting to whatever setting you like. So the two factors are the chart that you're looking at and the setting of the RSI. For the calculation now that I'm going to show on the screen, we are going to assume that we're looking at the daily chart and we keep the default setting of 14. Now, as you can see by this formula, it's all based on average gains and average losses. So what is the average gain over the last 14 days and what is the average loss over the last 14 days? Let's say that the average gain over the last 14 days has been 10 and the average loss over the last 10 days has been 1. This will give you a value of 10 over 1, which would equal 10. You then add 1 to it and then you divide 100 by that number, which is essentially 9. So then you take 100 and you subtract it by that number, which is 9, and that's going to give you an RSI of 91. As you can see by the formula, it's all about the average gains over the average losses. And any RSI value over 70 is considered overbought, meaning that the stock has had a ton of momentum and it's likely that it's going to pull back. Any RSI under 30 is oversold, meaning that the stock has been selling off a lot and it's likely to rebound. And an RSI over 50 means that the stock is still in an uptrend because your average gains are going to be higher than your average losses. In a nutshell, that is the calculation, the formula of RSI. And that's why it's so powerful in helping determine momentum for a stock. But keep in mind, it is relative. and it cannot be used alone. You need to be using these kinds of oscillators and studies in conjunction with other stuff, whether it's a support or resistance line, price activity, other studies. They cannot be used alone. And we're going to dive more into examples of how I use RSI personally when we head on over to the computer. All right, now I want to show you the RSI. This is a lower study, so depending on what brokerage you're using, it's going to show up on below the chart. That's why it's called a lower study. And most brokerages are going to offer the RSI. It's a very popular study. It's a very popular oscillator, but it's a lower one, so it's going to show up below the actual chart. Now it is relative, like we said earlier in this video. And as you can see, if we take a look at this chart, which is the 1 day, 1 minute, so every candle represents 1 minute, you can see that the RSI value is 48. But if we go to the 1 year, 1 day, you're going to see a much different value. Well, not much different in this case, but 42. If we go to the 20 day, 1 hour, it's at 46. Whatever the case may be, when taking a look at the RSI, the bigger the time frame, the daily is what I personally use, the better. Now we also mentioned overbought and oversold. Now anything in red here is over this line here, which is 70. That is overbought. Anything blue here is below this line at 30, and that is considered oversold. So a lot of traders, when they see a stock is overbought, they're going to start getting bearish. If they're long the stock, they might start fading their position, selling some of it to lock in gains. If they're looking to get into a trade, this is the point where they might start shorting the stock, either shorting it or buying puts. The inverse of that happens when the RSI indicates that a stock is oversold. So if you entered into a bearish trade, you might close out of that position. And if you're looking to go long, you might do so when the RSI is indicating that the stock is oversold. So that's how you look at the RSI. Next, I want to show you something that is very powerful when using the RSI, and that's when you can identify a divergence. A divergence happens in two different situations. A bearish divergence would be when you see a stock that is overbought on the RSI but continues to set higher highs. This is an indicator that momentum is starting to fade and you can get into a bearish trade. A bullish divergence would be the opposite of that. When you start to see higher lows in the RSI when it's oversold, but you still see lower lows in the stock. What we're looking at right now with MNQ, we can see a divergence in the RSI. If we take a look right here, you can see on the RSI, we're at 78.55. We're overbought, and the highest the RSI has been for this stock on this time frame. The next peak of the RSI is right here, where it's at 74.58, which was a lower than the prior RSI. But as you can see, the stock price was basically at its all-time high. Following this divergence, it was consolidating for a little bit. We almost set a double top. We kind of did set a double top, and then we broke down until the stock was oversold on the RSI and trading at around 14,000. This is a huge drop in the NASDAQ. And if somebody entered into a bearish trade following this divergence and held through it while it was consolidating, they would have made a lot of money. What else they could have done is they could have waited for that double top, another sign of confirmation, and then enter into a bearish trade. The RSI should never be used alone, and it depends on how aggressive of a trader you are when you would enter into your position. But let's say that you were to enter when they saw that divergence. At here, you're break even. You're at the same price, and then here you're at massive gains. If you bought at that divergence, you might have sold right here. And that is still a nice short-term trade. The opposite divergence will happen when you start to see lower highs on the RSI, but lower lows on the stock. I don't have an example up in front of me right now, but it's basically the inverse of what I just showed you. Next, I want to show you how I use the RSI on a trade that I'm currently in right now, and this is on MP Materials. It's been like a week and a half, and we're up 286% on this trade. For this trade, I did use the RSI, and I'm going to show you why I entered into this trade. So when I look at stocks, this is my chart. This is how I look at stocks personally 90% of the time. I'm looking at 4 charts at one time, and I have the RSI only in one chart, and that is on the daily chart, as you can see right here. And MP Materials did end up getting overbought, and that's when I entered into a bearish trade, buying a put debit spread against this stock. Now, like I said earlier in this video, you don't want to use RSI alone. So I paired it with a trend line on the weekly chart. Any lines that I draw in the color white, white for W, correspond to the weekly chart. A trend line on the weekly is going to be a very strong trend line. And as you can see right here, we were approaching that upper trend. So if that trend was going to remain, we were going to see a pullback. So it was at this point where I thought to myself, it seems very likely that MP Materials is at a resistance now, and it's time to get into a bearish trade. So let's identify a trade where we can maximize our risk to reward ratio. Because even though the RSI is overbought and we're at trend, we can still be wrong. So by going into a put debit spread, I basically was risking $1 to make $4. So identifying this high quality trade based off of the RSI and the trend line, and also taking a look at price activity, taking a look at the candles, and identifying if we actually had bullish momentum still based on the candles. And what I saw was a mini divergence in the stock. As you can see here, this was a major bullish candle. There is no wick here. It is a straight block of green, which is extremely bullish. And it was at this point where the RSI was the highest. We saw higher highs in the stock, but take a look at this candle. It's basically an entire wick. So it's not supported by a lot of volume. And the RSI was slightly lower. So we started to see that divergence. I entered into this trade and it kind of continued to go up a little bit. I wasn't making money, but none of these candles to me were indicating bullish momentum. As you can see, all of them had the volume towards the bottom of the candle. And then we saw this major move and we continued to see bearish movement, and now we saw another bearish candle. Now this trade is a short-term trade that's going to expire at the end of the week. I feel very good about my position. The RSI still has room to fall. We're at 46.79, so we're not oversold. But the RSI played a major factor in my decision and really helped me gauge momentum. Now let's take a look at another stock. This is a trade that I'm currently eyeing up. This is a trade that I want to get into, but I'm not in just yet. I'm looking at the RSI and I'm waiting for the right time to get into a position, a long position going bullish on AMD. So the RSI is approaching oversold. It's currently at 32.96, but it has not reached oversold territory just yet. So I'm trying to see where this stock is going to bottom, and then I'm going to enter into a bullish trade on AMD. Now I have a lot of lines on my chart right now. Every green horizontal line is a support or resistance corresponding to the daily chart. Every white horizontal line is a support or resistance corresponding to the weekly chart. I'm hoping that AMD actually starts to indicate that it's oversold at one of these support lines, whether it's here at $90 or here at $85, or if we start to see some choppy action here, but we hold at this $95 support and we get an indication that the stock is oversold on the RSI. We also have this trend line on the weekly, which is corresponding to this line, which is where we're at right now. So for me personally, there are multiple things to like right now with AMD. I'm just waiting for that indication on the RSI that it's oversold. Or if I zoom in and I start to see some things that I like in the candles, indicating that the stock is about to rebound, I will enter into a position because having an RSI here of around 32 is close enough if I start to see some other things that are indicating to me that it's time to buy. But yet again, the RSI is playing a huge role here. It is a very good indicator to use. It's super easy to understand. It is very popular. You just have to get used to using the RSI. Now, if you want to know when I get into AMD, I will post on the Discord server, which you get access to by joining the Patreon. Now that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I do thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you appreciate this content, then definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell, and smashing that like button. And also, please be aware that this channel does have a Patreon. It's the best way to support the channel. But when you sign up with the Patreon, you also get some perks and benefits. Like you get access to a Discord server of over 500 investors. And in that Discord server is where I provide all of my trading ideas, the stocks and options that I'm personally buying and selling, also other trading ideas. I'll throw up charts in there. We'll have an open discussion of opportunities out there in the stock market, and it's a community where other people will post things as well. Outside of that, comment down below on how you use the RSI on future video topics that you would like me to discuss. And that's about it. So I'll catch you all on the next video. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. And this is We Are Investing, and together we are invincible. See ya.